Hey there, you know that feeling, right? When you buy something and you just can't help but think, wow, I totally would have paid more for this. It feels like a win. Well, it turns out there's a name for that, an economic concept, actually. And that's exactly what we're going to break down today.
I mean, it's such a universal feeling, isn't it? That little buzz you get when you snag a real bargain. But here's the question. Is that just, a feeling? A little psychological trick? Or is there something real, something concrete going on behind the scenes?
Well, it turns out it's way more than just a feeling. Economists actually call it a hidden gain. And yeah, they can measure it. So in this explainer, we're going to get right into what that hidden gain is, how it works, and why it matters. Let's dive in.
All right, first things first. What do the pros, the economists, actually call this thing? Let's put a proper name to that great deal feeling. And here it is, consumer surplus. That's the technical term. It's really just the difference between the most you'd be willing to pay for something and the price you actually pay. It's that sweet spot, that gap right in the middle. Okay, so the whole thing really hinges on this idea of your willingness to pay. And this is super personal, right? It's the absolute maximum you'd shell out for something. And it's based on your income, how much you want it, how much you need it. My willingness to pay for a great cup of coffee in the morning is probably way different from yours. And that's totally fine. That's what gets this whole ball rolling.
Let's just use a quick example to make this crystal clear. Say you're dying to get a new book. In your head, you're thinking, okay, I'd pay up to 100 rupees for this, easy. Then you walk into the store, and bam! It's on the shelf for just 60. The math here is as simple as it gets. You take what you were willing to pay, subtract what you actually paid, and that's your hidden gain.
So in this case, that's 40 rupees. That number right there is your consumer surplus. It's not just the feeling anymore. It's actual, measurable economic value that you just pocketed. It's the monetary sign on that I got a great deal feeling.
And if you're a visual person, think of it like this. Economists love their graphs, right? So imagine a downward sloping demand curve. That's basically everyone's willingness to pay all lined up. Then you've got a straight line for the market price. Well, that whole area squished between the curve and the price line, that's what you can think of as the bonus zone. It's all the extra value that every single consumer is getting.
Okay, so that's how it works for you or me buying one thing. But what happens when we zoom out? How does this whole consumer surplus idea play out in the bigger marketplace? Let's take a look.
And this is where it gets really interesting. Look at the difference here. In a market with tons of competition, prices get pushed down. And that bonus zone, the consumer surplus, is huge. But what about a monopoly? Well, they can crank up the price, and you see that surplus area just shrink. A big chunk of that value gets gobbled up by the company as profit. It's proof that competition is, literally, a great deal for us consumers.
So the key takeaway here is pretty simple. When prices fall, your surplus grows. When prices go up, it shrinks. It's a direct relationship. So every time you see a sale, a discount, or some new tech makes things cheaper, that's more surplus in your pocket. On the flip side, things like inflation or price hikes, they're basically stealing that surplus right back.
Now, you didn't think businesses were just going to let all that extra value sit there, did you? Oh, no. They are very aware of this. They know we all have a different willingness to pay, and they have a clever strategy to try and capture as much of that surplus as they can. It's called price discrimination, and you see it everywhere. Student discounts, airline tickets that change price by the minute, those basic premium platinum subscription tiers. It's all a game to figure out the maximum you are willing to pay and get you as close to that number as possible.
All right, so this isn't just some neat little economic theory for bargain hunters. This concept has huge, real-world consequences, especially when we start talking about governments and policy. And this is so important because, believe it or not, when governments are debating a new policy, one of the big questions they ask is, okay, but what does this do to consumer surplus? They use it as a stand-in, a proxy for the overall well-being of the people. It's a really big deal.
Take a look at a simple example, like a tax. This makes it super clear. Before the tax, the price is lower, and our consumer surplus is higher. But once the government adds, say, a sales tax, the price you pay goes up. And what's the immediate result? Your consumer surplus shrinks. That bonus zone we talked about gets smaller, and part of it gets shifted over to the government in the form of tax revenue.
And the same kind of thinking applies to all sorts of policies. When they're debating subsidies, they're asking, will this create enough consumer surplus to be worth the cost? For trade rules and tariffs, are we hurting consumers more than we're helping our own industries? These are the massive trade-offs that get weighed using this exact concept.
But as important as all that policy stuff is, maybe the most mind-blowing example of consumer surplus today is happening in a place we barely even think about: the digital world. Yeah, let's connect this classic idea to the 21st century.
I mean, just think about it. How many things do you use every single day that are free? Search engines, open source software, all these online platforms. The price is literally zero. But ask yourself, what would you be willing to pay for them if you had to? For a lot of us, the answer would be hundreds, if not thousands of rupees a year. The amount of consumer surplus we get from the digital world is just staggering. It's absolutely massive.
Seriously, just pause for a second and think about it. What's the real value you get from something like a search engine or an online map? It's a ridiculous amount of hidden gain. And here's the kicker: it doesn't even show up in the big economic numbers like GDP. It's almost invisible value.
Okay, so let's wrap this up and really hone in on the big takeaway here.
At the end of the day, it really all boils down to this one powerful idea. Consumer surplus is all about those hidden gains we get when the price we pay is less than what something is really worth to us. It's a way to actually put a number on the extra value that a good deal gives you, a value that goes way beyond the price tag.
Now, it's really important to draw a line here. Consumer surplus is an economic tool. It's a number, a proxy for well-being. It isn't the same thing as, happiness or satisfaction. Those are feelings. But it's the best way economists have come up with to try and measure those positive gains in a way we can actually work with.
And look, it's not a perfect tool. Of course not. It's basically impossible to know exactly what every single person's true willingness to pay is. And let's be real, we don't always make 100% rational decisions when we're shopping, do we? But even with those limitations, it's still an incredibly useful and powerful way to think about how much value we're really getting.
So I want to leave you with this question. Now that you know about consumer surplus, how is it going to change the way you look at a price tag? The next time you get a good deal, don't just think about the money you saved. Think about the surplus you gained, that hidden value. It's a completely new lens to see the economic world all around you.